And so, the field that is already jumping with joy is the field of being that is the self that is, and you are that. It is jumping with joy because it is enlivened to be in its own company so richly. The field is enlivened when silence is here. In the absence of objects, the presence of silent being, the field of silent being is alive with joy, causeless joy. That is the true nature. And so it is to be here now as the field, the infinite, unbounded field of silent being. Just being yourself, just as you are, just as you have always been, always eternally been, resting in your infinite, unbounded nature, that you are limitless by nature, that you are freedom by nature. So coming to this moment is to meet yourself here now. Come here just as you are. Do not bring memory. Do not bring a story. Do not bring expectations. Be here now with no purpose, with no wanting, no desire, no need. Just be here, just as you are, just as you have always been. To be utterly purposeless. Being here now. Resting as the aware being that is the truth of who you are. In the absence of someone, in the absence of things, there is a simple, open field of presence. There is no one that can understand the truth that is the nature of all being. There is no one that can know, and yet knowing is here. The field of being is a field of knowing. And you can only know yourself through being yourself. It is a knowing without knowing how you know. And the incredible profundity of that is an explosion of alive joy. You know without knowing how you know. You know you are here. How do you know you are here? We could say because you just are. This revelation has a depth that wants to be explored. Can come to this revelation and dance right back to the mind and miss the incredible truth that is the nature of being. Because as soon as we are dancing in things, as soon as we are dancing in objects, we are not being. You cannot make a mental choice to leave yourself behind. You cannot make a mental choice to leave things behind. You cannot make a mental choice to stop thinking. You can only fall into the infinite beingness that is the true nature. And it all starts here, now, in the simple presence of this moment. The nowness of this moment holds the incredible totality of who you are. The absolute divine reality is right here, now. Being here now is like a patch of blue sky on a cloudy day. When you see that little patch of blue, it has a completely different quality. It's so alive, it's so vibrant against the cloudy grayness, the heaviness, the quality of that blue patch is so alive because you are looking into the infinite. You are looking into the unbounded. And to be here now is to recognize that right here now, in your own direct experience, is the portal of blue sky that is your infinite being. It is to disappear into the infinite blue of your true Krishna nature. It is to disappear into the infinite nothingness of your true self. Being here now, purposeless, desireless, without wanting or needing anything. So if you cannot leave it all behind, what do you do about those thoughts that keep popping in? You just watch them. You just watch. You watch the body, you watch thinking, thoughts that come and go. You watch the feelings and sensations without evaluating, without opinion. You watch, openly seeing, openly receiving, noticing with no noticer, watching with no watcher, receiving with no receiver. There is no how to this. It is just to allow the words to invite the possibility of being what is being pointed to. Do not linger with the words. Do not meddle with the words, with the mind. Because if you start to attach to the words as instructions, you will get left behind. You will get left behind in memory. You will get left behind in trying. Here now, you are. You are fresh, you are awake, you are clear, you are being. Here now, knowing is here now. And it is all about emptying this moment of everything that acts as a distraction, everything that obscures the clear view of yourself. But you cannot look for it. You cannot seek it and hope to find it. You can only rest in the beingness and allow the dawning of clear, true nature to reveal itself. Fall into the infinite blue. Fall into the infinity of you. There is no how. The glory is that there is no how, because there is no one that needs to know how. There is no one to understand. As soon as there is any one that says, I think I've got it, I understand, I get it, it is to jump off that ledge, because that is not it. Jump off that ledge, because that is not it. True understanding is being yourself, being the being that you have always been. You fall into yourself, you fall into being, and the knowing is here. The knowing is here, and the dawning is knowing without knowing how you know. Because there is no one that knows. This is where there is no one that understands, and yet knowing is here. Knowing is true understanding. You are the understanding. You are the knowing when you are resting in the being that is true. So here now, dissolve into the infinite field of causeless joy that is the true nature. This field that is already jumping with joy, enlivened in the knowing. The knowing is so alive, so alive, so alive, that it is jumping with its joyful nature. You can feel it without being someone that feels. You are not the feeler of it, just like you are not the knower of it. There is pure knowing, there is pure feeling, and pure feeling is the aliveness of the knowing, recognizing itself, jumping with a little bit of causeless joy, just because there's no reason not to be joyful when there's nothing in the way of true nature. Joy is here, jumping with joy, for absolutely no reason. So the glory is that there's nothing to understand, there's no instructions, there's no one here to get anything. It is just a party, a celebratory party of the being jumping for joy just because it knows itself. Just because it knows itself. That it is in the discovery of its absolute purposeless nature, and that anything else has absolutely no value right here in the divine reality. That we leave it all behind. We leave behind the story, the evaluating, the analyzing, the giving meaning, the needing to know, the needing to understand. We leave it all behind. But there's no trying to get away from anything. We leave it behind by falling in deeper to the infinite unbounded field of being, silent, aware being. Everything is still happening on the surface of life, but when the attention is not with the objects of experience, when the attention is not with the content of experience. What is here is yourself. What is here is your true nature, jumping with joy just because you are. There's no words, there's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no reason. Isness just is. What is, just is. And you already are everything that has been longed for. You always have been. The being is eternal, timeless being. So here now, we enter the timeless being. The timeless being is not wearing a watch. It is pure watching, but it is not wearing a watch. Pure watching, because aware being cannot help being aware, cannot help watching, and yet it has absolutely nothing to say about what it can see. It has no evaluation of what it can see, because it only sees itself. It cannot make any differentiation. It cannot make any analysis, because it only sees itself. It does not see anything other than itself. It's not a seeing that describes. It is not a seeing that is a narrative. It is not a seeing that labels and defines. It is a seeing that is pure, pure, clear seeing. The self seeing itself here now. And the seeing is the knowing, the knowing of being, the knowing of being itself is a clear seeing of reality. And the clear seeing of reality is the self seeing itself and knowing only itself. So clear seeing is knowing there is only the self. There is only the divine, pure and simple, innocent, immaculate being. So perhaps the dawning of this does not come in one glorious sunrise. Because the play of the world and the attraction to objects is a deeply worn groove. We could say that if we could leave behind that distractive habit, the dawning of that glorious sunrise would be everything. It would obscure everything. And in the moment it does obscure everything. It brings clear seeing. It brings knowing. It brings the joyful jumping of the alive field. And yet the habit of attention, the habit of attention to move towards object and identify with objects is a deeply worn groove. And so it keeps playing out. The attention keeps wandering and wandering and wandering. And every time it wanders back into complete alignment, the glory is here. The glory is here. The glory is here. And you are the glory that is always here now. And the attention wanders, and the attention wanders, and then it comes back, and the glory is here now. And every time there is a landing in the glory of being here now, being yourself, in the unseen realms of consciousness, the subtler perception in the field is attuning with itself. It's remembering itself. So the knowing deepens, seems to deepen. So we could say that the fullness of divinity is here. It never changes. The absolute wholeness is always here. The light, the illuminating principle of divine light is always fully illuminated. It is a light that is never diminished, never diminished in any way. So we are not turning up the light of the divine. We are not changing the divine in any way. All that is happening in this seeming process is that the layers of veiling, the layers that obscure the clear seeing and the clear view, the clear knowing of who you are, fall away, falling away, dissolving. So we could say then the experience as you come closer and closer to the light of being is that it seems to get deeper and deeper and brighter because there is more that is falling away. So more of the divine wholeness that you belong to, that you have no separation from, is able to shine as you're knowing. And as it shines as you're knowing, it is felt as the aliveness of joy, of love, of truth. You start to feel your own nature more without there being someone that is feeling, because that feeling is subtle perception. It's consciousness perceiving itself, knowing itself, coming alive within itself. But that feeling is unbounded. That feeling isn't in me. It's not anything to do with the me. In fact, it is really nothing to do with the me. And yet we could say in truth it includes the me. Of course it includes the me. It's inside the me and it's outside the me. There are no boundaries. There are no boundaries. There is no inside and no outside that are different in true nature. So the knowing is unbounded. The knowing is infinite. The knowing has no limits. The knowing of being has no containment in any way, because there is no one that knows, that has anywhere to put it. Where could the being put its knowing? There is nowhere. There are no objects to position it, to place it. There's no one to hold on to it. There's no one to make sense of it, to grasp it, to understand it. So the purposeless, desireless being is just here now, simply here now. And as it starts to feel more of itself, we could say in your direct experience, the knowing starts to come alive. The recognition, the remembering starts to come alive. And there's an aliveness. And depending on the depth of that, and it's not a comparison, it's not a competition, it's all the same being, feeling itself, but it's having a different experience of itself, gloriously having a different experience of itself at every single point. So where there is a seeming separate body, it's having a slightly different experience of itself. But it's celebrating itself equally, joyfully, exuberantly at every single point equally. It's not differentiating, oh, I'm hanging out in this body, it's a bit dull. Oh, wow, I'm hanging out in this body, it's wild and free and alive. It's not making any differentiation because it's always the same. It's always the same. The differentiation is the mind qualifying the direct experience. But when there's no qualifying, When there's no qualifying, here you are. You're completely the same, everywhere. We could say you're the same in every single being. Could look at all the divine faces in this gathering and just see yourself, feel yourself dancing in every body equally, experiencing yourself equally in every body. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's all the same. And it's eternally joyful. So the mind can take this all very seriously. In some ways, it's good to be serious because it's sincere, it's earnest. Earnest, as Nisargadatta would say. It's earnest, right? That's great. That's great. Because that earnest sincerity is because the longing of the heart is so deep and so pure that it's pulling in this serious longing, this earnest longing, this deeply sincere longing for the self. But if that sincerity and that seriousness takes you out into the world, having a very serious experience of looking for your divine nature in the world, it's going to feel seriously disappointing, because that seriousness, that sincerity is all here to lead you into this moment here now, into the being where you are seriously joyful, seriously happy for absolutely no reason, where the heart is seriously wide open and free. The glory is there's no journey. The glory is that when you are here now, the only journey is to move from the one that feels like I am here now to being here now. It's a journey from now to now. And as you move from now to now, now is the meeting in being. Now, here you are. No purpose, no reason, no expectations. Just being itself, dancing with itself, illuminating itself, shining the light of its own infinite nature equally in every seeming heart in order to illuminate the truth of the one heart. So what the me cannot understand, what the me cannot follow, is utter perfection. Where the me is confused, even better. Because it is just in the being here now. Everything here in this now is conspiring for the me to surrender without a surrenderer. It's the surrender of the surrenderer into pure surrender that lands you, kaboom, here now, spontaneously into the being. And when you arrive spontaneously into the being, there is nothing to become, because there is no future. There's nothing other. It's not now moving into something in the next now. It's more immediate than that. It's just now. It's not a series of nows that you clip together. No, there's only now. It's so simple. There's only now. And here now, when you feel yourself here now, you are alive and free here now. The heart is wide open here now. There is no story here now. There is no one to awaken here now. There is awakeness. The whole field is awake. That's the jumping with joy. The whole field is awake to itself here now. So it's jumping with joy because it is awake to itself everywhere equally, jumping with joy, jumping with alive joy, knowing itself. So there is no one to awaken. There is just awake consciousness flowing within itself, knowing itself. And this knowing is yourself. This knowing is yours. You cannot take this knowing back to the world of the me, but you can live in this knowing. You can live in being. Being. The surrender of the doer, the surrender of the one that feels to be the chooser. When you are resting in being, choosing happens. Choosing is spontaneous happening. So here now, it is to feel the simplicity of being. Just being here now. Just being here, just as you are. The being that you are is simply aware being, simply aware of all that is moving and changing, and yet not touched in any way. The aware being has no comment about anything that is moving and changing. The aware being is just simply here being, and you are this being. It is to feel the being just being yourself, to recognize that the feeling of yourself is at no distance from the feeling of being, at no distance at all. No distance. Now, right now. There's no difference. There's no difference to the feeling of being or the feeling of yourself, because this is the being, this is the self that you have always been, underneath the play of personality, underneath the play of the world that seems to be moving and changing, underneath the thinking, underneath the whole play that comes and goes, is the silent being that you have always been, eternally, before the body and after the body, before the body, after the body, the birthless, deathless, eternal being that has never been touched by the play of the world, that has never been traumatized, that has never been tainted or upset in any way, that you remain immaculate, you remain innocent, you remain pure, that you have never been anything other than the pure, innocent, immaculate being that you are now, that you already are everything that is being longed for. So this serious longing of the heart, when the serious longing is followed into the felt sense of the longing, the ache, the devotion, the pull, the magnetic pull, that you do not really know what that longing is for, but my goodness, the mind tries to find out, doesn't it? Tries to find out by searching. But if you just follow that longing, that ache, feel the longing, the aliveness. What is that pull? What is that inside you that is creating a seeker? What is that inside you? What is that pull? You find that it is no different to the aliveness of knowing. It is no different to the presence of being, because that longing is the gift that the divine left inside you. It is the principle of illumination. It is the indweller. It is that already knows, that was so generously left with you as you took your human birth. As you took your human birth, the truth came with you. And it never left. It was never tainted or changed. And so there's someone that feels to be longing. There's someone that feels to be seeking. Someone that feels to be questing. Someone that wants to awaken. Someone that is very pulled by the idea of enlightenment, of freedom. Someone that is very magnetized by the love of God, the love for God. But it's all because you are the love of God. You are enlightenment, we could say. Already, you are the immaculate being. You are everything that you think you are longing for. And what is longing for it is that which already knows. It is the spark of light, of divine light that is pure, that is within you. It is the love of God that is already within you, that creates the sense of longing, because it is inviting you to remember. It is inviting you to remember. It's saying, over here, over here. But it feels like it's in the heart, but it's everywhere. But the play of the world that is reflecting it to you gets misinterpreted. So absolutely everything in your divine view is saying, over here, here is your God nature. Here is your divine nature. The whole of the manifest appearance is the clue. Imagine that. The whole of the manifest appearance is the big shining clue to your true nature. But when you are identified as the person thinking that you're moving in the world, you're not seeing clearly. You're seeing as a fragment, and you're analyzing, and you're giving names to everything, and you're working out, do I like that? Do I not like that? Does that work for me? Does that not work for me? Am I safe here? Am I not safe here? Right? Always. So not seeing that everything is shining with neon blinkers saying, only God, only God, only God, only God. Okay? So the divine quest invites you to feel that longing. Fall into the infinite blue, fall into that patch of infinite blue. Feel yourself being here now. Recognize that when you go through that patch of infinite blue in the here now, you recognize that there's only infinite blue. You're not someone that's looking at the infinite blue, that you've dissolved into being the infinite blue. You are the infinite being. You dissolve into your true nature. You discover that you are the infinite being. And as you recognize that who you are is the infinite being, you always have been, the intelligence of your knowing, the aliveness of your knowing starts to dance as this aliveness, as this flow of knowing, this flow of knowing that's not becoming anything, not becoming anything in the future, and yet it is appearing as the world. And so how you start to know everything as yourself is through being yourself. And the deeper that you fall in to the recognition of being the consciousness that is consciously perceiving itself, you start to feel, oh, the consciousness that I am is the consciousness that's dancing as that flower. The consciousness that I am is dancing as that tree that's completely still. The tree isn't saying, I am a tree, right? The being isn't saying, I am the being. The knowing is silent. The knowing just is. But when you are resting in the knowing, you recognize the substance of what you are is the aliveness of knowing. And the aliveness of knowing, we could call it bliss, flowing, flowing, flowing. And that substance is creating everything. It's creating everything. So the deeper that you know yourself, you start to see that everything that you have thought of as a separate object is just a reflection of yourself. And you only see it and know it because you are the aware being. That really, when you try to grab it, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. All you're grabbing is yourself. There's nothing there but yourself. Just being, just being. So resting here now, you open to the infinite blue. You cannot know how, you cannot work it out. You just find yourself here. Being here now is to be available for the flow of grace that is the true nature to come and swallow you, devour you, consume you, and take you into the deepest knowing of the heart. That is the knowing of your divine nature. And it starts with recognizing yourself being being. So the being is the divine being. Of course, as every word that we use to unfold the petals of pure divinity, as every word we use, as the code is cracked, as the pointing is received and the clarity dawns, the words fall away, the words fall away, the words fall away. So then we come to being, not being, being, not being. There's no one to differentiate, but what we find the self to be is neither being or not being, neither the self or the not self. But we use words to point. But what is being pointed to has no words. It's wordless, inexplainable. So the words are just pointing. The words are just a transmission of the silent field. It's the brilliance of the gleaming jewel of the true heart is the transmission. It's the brilliance. It's the gleaming, the gleaming. And so to receive the transmission is to receive the brilliance of your own nature that just becomes enlivened. Just like you receive the brilliance of the jewel, you receive the brilliance of the jewel that you are, and you recognize the brilliance because you start to feel the shining brilliance of your being. You start to feel the shining truth without being someone that's taken a journey or done anything. You just start to feel the tingling, the sparkling, the glimmering of your own brilliance. You start to feel the aliveness of your own knowing. And the aliveness of your own knowing delivers you into the diamond clarity of your divine nature. You do not know how you got here. You cannot find yourself. The only knowing is the truth of who you are, gleaming, gleaming with this deep knowing, but there's nothing here. There's absolutely nothing here but the knowing, which is shining, shining, shining. The self, luminous self, shining in and of itself. You can see the character, you can feel the qualities of the character, but you know that who you are is not limited to that you never have been limited, that you are the infinite being. You are the infinite being. Brilliance, gleaming, glistening, brilliance shining in and of itself, never touched by the play of the character, never touched by any of the comings and goings of the worldly play, that you are just shining. You are just shining in and of yourself. And that shining is the shining of all beings. We could say this shining is the love of God. This shining is the divine heart. This shining is the light of the soul. But it goes deeper than even the soul. It is the soul's knowing of its universal nature. It is the soul's knowing of the light that it belongs to. We could say the soul is the finest manifest layer, a quality of that, the bliss body. But deeper than that, the soul is absolutely not separate. So the jiva is not separate from the Atman. It's not separate. And you are the infinite unbounded, that which is the universal soul. You are never ever separate. So your longing is carrying you into the belonging, being the longing. As you be the longing, you are carried into the luminous, shining, the radiance of the heart that is infinite, divine, never ever tainted in any way. And the deeper the landing in this truth, the deeper the landing in this truth, we could say you carry your true nature, the quality of true nature that is realized is the degree to which that animates the form, right? So the quality, the depth of recognition is what animates the form. It's what animates the form. Although there's even a process to bringing, we could say, the depth of recognition to fully be able to live on the surface of life, to animate the form. It's always animating the form, but you can still feel like you're playing out the character. But you know a deep sense of your true nature, and there can be the wondering, why does this glorious truth that I know that I am, why does it not shine in every moment, in every interaction? Why does it not shine? And essentially, it is shining in your knowing, and yet in the play, it's shining, but it's shining, and as it shines, it shines through filters. And if there's anything there to be refined, which of course, let's face it, there is, we all have that. So as it shines through, it picks up the qualities of consciousness that need refining, and it creates a view. It creates a view for you to see the parts of yourself that you haven't seen through, that need to refine into the being, right? So the light that you are and your knowing is never diminished, never diminished. And the more you open and receive the bliss of your true nature, the more you drink in your sweetness and you flow in the gorgeousness of your true divine nature, the more of that gorgeousness is able to be alive through your physiology. And it's refining your physiology. We're really taking the whole journey here, right? So it's refining the physiology, refining the physiology, refining the physiology so that more of it can live on the surface of life. So we could say the divine is pushing from its infinite nature, and it's seeming, as it's pushing, it's creating this world appearance, your unique view, to refine you from the other side, wear away all those egocentric behaviors. Wearing away all those egocentric behaviors is the divine grace. right? And it's happening because your divine nature is pushing for more light, pushing to take up more space in the form. It's refining what you call your body, your physiology, so that more of your divine nature can live through and shine on the surface of life, right? So everything that's playing as the play of the world is not keeping you from your spiritual quest, unless you're distracted by it, of course, but it's not keeping you from deepening into true spirituality, because true spirituality is being. It's so simple. It's so simple to be the being. And then when you are resting in the being, everything is taking care of itself. So everything that is being spoken here is describing the full landscape, the full landscape of the consciousness right here now as it is unfolding. So some of it will resonate and bring more aliveness. Some of it will feel like it makes absolutely no sense. So you let it go. You let it just flow, flow, flow in the river of grace. You just feast on the aliveness. You feast on the aliveness and worry not about anything else. Feast on the aliveness of the resonance of your own remembering. You feast on the aliveness of your own recognition, exactly as it is. As soon as there's a wanting, oh, but I haven't got that she spoke of, you're away from yourself, right? You got caught. You got caught in a little trap, but not because you're bad. You got caught in the little trap because there's the grace offering the opportunity for something else to be freed, right? Everything is one working together, conspiring for freedom, conspiring for the true light, divine light that is the wide open heart, to know itself all the way through. So as these words come, you receive the resonance of truth as the recognition is alive. As it is alive, you allow what is enlivened to be enlivened. Consciousness itself is perceiving itself, knowing itself, recognizing itself, and working within itself to refine itself. Everything is being refined into the being. Everything is being refined into the being. You cannot do it better. You cannot do it at all. It is the constant surrender into the now, the devotion to now, the resting in the now that allows the deepening, deepening, deepening of the being. And it is this drinking in the nectar of yourself, drinking in the nectar of your knowing, that enlivens the field of joy, enlivens the field of joyful knowing. It enlivens the silence of the heart. Sparkles, sparkles, infinite sparkles, right? You are the consciousness that is sparkling and receiving your own sparkliness. You just keep receiving whatever flavor of yourself you can receive, whether it's a feeling of aliveness or joy, or just the simple knowing, or a rich silence, or whether it's the sparkliness, or an intoxicated, blissful drowning in the gorgeousness. You just receive whatever flavor you are tasting. Don't want another flavor, because if you want a different flavor, a bigger flavor, you're away from yourself. Drink in the flavor that you are tasting of yourself, exactly as it is. The resonance of knowing, the resonance of yes. You drink it in and you fall deeper in. You drink it in and you fall deeper in. Hmm. So we're describing the landscape of consciousness that is here. We're deep in the landscape of consciousness, in the infinite joyful being. We've dropped from the surface of life where the attention is focused on objects, and we are exploring this vast infinite field of being. Being yourself. Being the light that is ever shining in and of itself. The ocean of bliss. Being the self that is infinitely, eternally bathing in itself. Bathing in the bliss of the self. Not identified with the body, not identified with the thoughts, but completely and utterly free, absolutely free, seriously free. So free that you recognize that who you are is freedom. You don't have to worry about the person. The deeper that you recognize the truth of the heart, of the being that you are, you can feel without question that the person that you have believed yourself to be, the character that you play, and how that character is played is all a flow of grace. And you are the grace that is flowing in and as that character. But the deeper that you are resting in yourself, the quality of yourself you are tasting is the quality that will flow as the character. So that which you recognize when life feels like flow and ease, it's because you are resting deeply in a quality of your own nature that is able to get to the surface. But of course, as you are flowing, you're going to meet places that are a little stuck, a little obstructed, like a flow of a river that suddenly gets to a little point where there's a rock and some sticks and some leaves, and the direction seems to be a little off, but you're still flowing. You just hit a rock. You just hit a rock for a moment, and it's okay. You're going to deal with the impact of hitting a rock, but you're going to keep flowing. You're going to keep flowing. You're the flow. You're the flow that is just simply flowing as grace. Does the river, when it hits the rock, get all upset and say, right, that's it, I'm done? Does it have hurt feelings? Ooh, this is really hard, right? Does the river get upset? No, it just keeps flowing. And that is your true nature, to just keep flowing. Because you are the consciousness. You're the consciousness. So like the river, you're not identified with being a river. You are just the flow. You're just the flow. You're just the flow of grace. You are just the flow of life. You are life flowing and living itself. It's not commenting upon its living of itself. We could say it's aware of itself. It has the ability to see and experience all the unique flavors of itself, but it's not resisting anything. So perhaps you can start to feel in your own consciousness how you don't have to worry about the person, that it's the person that worries about the person. It's the person that says, yeah, but what about? What about? The being isn't worried about the person, because the being is the grace that animates that which seems to be a person. The personhood, the person. It's like your pet. It's like a little pet. You just take care of that person. But when you are resting in the being, you are able to take care perfectly in alignment of the body temple, because the body temple is the divine housing, right? So you can start to feel that now as the being that animates the form. You want a nice, clean and tidy house to live in, right? You would like a form to animate that is easy and smooth to live in. So you're guided by your alignment to take care of the body temple as divine housing, to take care of the body temple, right? But just as we experience emotional obstacles, we experience body obstacles that come as illness and upset. But it's all part of the play of consciousness refining itself within itself, right? So you can start to feel that more. You start to feel it in your being. So when you start to feel things in the being and they make sense, and consciousness is consciously aware of itself, in the knowing of itself, the mind can take hold and say, oh yes, that means I have to do this. Oh yes, a light goes on in the mind too, right? When insight comes. Be aware of that, because it can be a little trap that carries you into the mind and say, right, after satsang, I have to make a to-do list. No. Rest in the being and allow the guidance to be the true miracle that it is, right? True guidance is not coming from outside of you. It's coming from the depth of your alignment. It's coming from the depth of your alignment with your true nature. It's coming from the depth of dissolution of the me, right? The less of the me there is, the more the divine grace is flowing unencumbered, right? So this is all information, intelligence, dancing as information, that the me can actually dissolve into, if the me is smart here, can dissolve into, I can let go. I can let go more and more and more. Everything is being carried. Everything is being taken care of. Everything that I think I'm doing is just happening. The good things that I'm doing that I want to take responsibility for, and the bad things that I'm doing that I have no idea how they happen. It's all the flow of grace, right? So as consciousness consciously is awake to itself and is resting in this knowing here, tasting itself, receiving the grace of true insight is inner seeing, right? It's clear seeing. So here we are experiencing clear seeing. Clear seeing is not an understanding of the mind. It's seeing clearly from the true nature, that your view is unobstructed, or we could say less obstructed, right? So when you're in the clear seeing, then you start seeing everything with a value of clarity, because the clarity of the light of your true nature is shining upon all those things that the me wants to be worried about. True nature says, worry not, worry not. It's got nothing to do with you. Just relax into the being. Follow the guidance of the heart. It's not me following the guidance of the heart. It's the surrender of the me to allow the guidance of the heart to just flow, right? It's all happening. It's gorgeous. So, being here now, being yourself, being the beauty of who you are, flowing as the wide open heart, flowing as the wide open heart. openly receiving itself, all of itself. And the more openness there is, you see the value of your own consciousness and its openness and its recognition of itself starts to receive everything that it sees as itself. Whoa, amazing. Because you're so open and you're not evaluating and you're not labeling or analyzing. You're not announcing anything. There's no narrative. You feel yourself, and the depth of the feeling of yourself is the depth of your knowing that then reflects itself back to you. And this is when you start to receive that shining of the whole view, saying only God, only the divine, only Mother, only the divine, shining in and as everything, resting. There is no map or guidance for the me, but when you fall into being, you find yourself in the vast, open landscape of consciousness that is complete freedom, utter openness, and the way is illuminated through tasting the depth of your own being. You taste it, you've received the clue. The next opening, you taste, you receive the clue. But part of that looping process is a process of transformation that is going to surrender the me deeper into being. So you're resting in being. You taste yourself. Opening, the feeling of opening. Oh, great glory. Wouldn't I love to rest here? Yes. But as you're resting here, into the landscape comes some kind of obstacle. Arr, says the me. And suddenly the attention identifies back. It identifies back to illuminate. Oh, when you're resting in being, you see, oh, it's just illuminating something that's ready to come home. No one doing anything wrong, no one that has to work out how to fix it, no one to successfully navigate this, no one to be seen by anybody else as doing it well or right. No, just love, loving itself, coaxing itself. Feel the feelings, allow everything to harmonize, and that too surrenders at the feet of life, refines into the being and knows itself. The taste is sweeter, deepening into being, opening. And so here we speak of the cycle of transformation. That is a cycle of kindness. It's consciousness itself. Every part of the cycle is equally as important. It is the process. It cannot refine within itself with every single little part of the process. And that is the wisdom of the details. The wisdom of the details are refining the being into being so that you can know your true nature all the way through. The true nature as being, and deepening into the deep remembering as the being dissolves into God, the divine, the light. That you already are, that you always have been, that you are never away from. So, the field jumping with joy, sharing its joy, always sharing its joy freely, openly, flowing as grace, flowing as grace. flowing as life. Open, open as the heart, dancing as the knowing that can be so easily denied, knowing the self that you are, the self that can open to itself as being no self, knows that it is neither the self or the no self, and it is both the self and the no self, but it's got nothing left to say. Just is, just is. Mm. 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 To taste the taste that is purely yours is to dissolve into yourself. Mm. 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 The great glory is always here now. Always here now. Mm. That glory is the truth of who you are. Mm. Mm. You can feel it, but there's no one feeling it. You know it, but you do not know how. Mm. 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 So mm. 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 Mm.